Live from deep in an underground bunker in East Tennessee, this is America's premier mortgage field services expert, Paul Williams.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of Foreclosurepedia Podcast. Foreclosurepedia Podcast presentation of the Foreclosurepedia Radio Network, which premieres each weekend. 20th of October, 2018, as you just heard at the top of the hour, had a great interview with two gentlemen over that hedge fund, talking with everybody about what's really going on in the industry and the direction that we're going vis-a-vis. Over the past 5 years, everything has been about, if you will, cleaning the toilets, getting the debris out, working for nationals, getting those properties back online for homeowners to buy. The problem that presents, and that which they demonstrated to us, was the simple and salient fact that Ma and Pa aren't buying homes anymore. And as we see the new influx of these hedge funds buying up massive amounts of properties, you heard some of those numbers. They were looking at pools of 100 to 500,000 at a pop. Now, granted, not all those are foreclosed or unoccupied, but those loans are distressed at best. You know, the industry in and of itself continues to be tainted by the National Association of Mortgage Field Services regime. Eric Miller, its executive director, clouded because of his annual $120,000 plus annual salary, in addition to all his perks of flying around, staying at five-star hotels, resorts. Justis Smith, the CEO, and that name is ironic. I want that to sink in. That's truly an oxymoron, Justis Smith. CEO of Rowe Enterprises and the president of NAMPS. As you all know, Foreclosurepedia was forced to file yet again for the 6th year running an IRS 13909 complaint to compel NAMPS to produce their federal nonprofit tax return. 6 years running. We've gotten them every year. Federal law requires that they turn them over. And yet now, the new axis of evil between Eric Miller in Stowe, Ohio, Justis Smith Rowe Enterprises in Florida. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, not a day goes by that my mind is not boggled by the simple and salient fact that these people are not in prison. But I want to talk to you a little bit about why the industry, as you have experienced it, and as long as I have been out here on the airwaves and on the internet documenting why the industry is changing. Look, the majority of Americans now consider renting more affordable than buying a home. That's a belief that could foreshadow a decline in home sales. This is coming from curated articles on LinkedIn. 78% of those surveyed by Freddie Mac say renting is more affordable than home ownership. And I want you to think about that number for just a moment, because that's up 11% from just 6 months ago. And a further 58% of renters say they don't currently have plans to buy a home. And when you really look at the rental market that's out there, you know, those prices have stabilized. And in fact, if we look back, going all the way back to last July, take San Francisco as median point, those rent prices, they're stagnant out there. And why is this serious? Well, we're shifting from an individual owner-occupied housing environment into an institutionally based environment. So let me put that in layman's terms. Let me do precisely what Foreclosurepedia does for the Foreclosurepedia nation. Individuals, mom and pa homeowners are foreclosed upon. Institutional owners are not. And according to the Wall Street Journal, some 78% of people now saying that the renting is more affordable than owning, that number will most assuredly climb by the end of the year. So let's do just a little bit of basic math, all right? As of 2017, there were roughly 325 million people in the United States, plus or minus, depending on whether or not you go below Rio Linda and count the illegals that are swarming across the border like mongrel hordes. Out of those, nearly 93 million were of legal age to purchase homes. What Freddie Mac is saying is that 72.5 million people have thrown in the towel with respect to home ownership. So I want you to think about today when there are no volumes in our industry. There are no volumes out there whatsoever. Now, we've been documenting this for about the trend for about the past 36 months. And when we first started stating that company after company, NAMP's regime member after member, were going to begin to implode, everybody thought that Foreclosurepedia had lost its mind. It was the good old days, money rolling in, taking baths in it, like Eric Miller and Liz Zayats would appear to be doing in Stowe, Ohio. What that means is that when an institutional buyer purchases a home, that goes in a portfolio, and it will never, ever become foreclosed upon again. 72.5 million people, potential buyers, potential foreclosures, which this industry might actually work upon, gone. And look, when we really sit down and think about what's going on in the industry, let's talk about Assurant Field Asset Services. Everybody remembers I said they were going under. They would go under within the next 60, and everybody said, you're high. You're on drugs, Paul. You don't know what you're talking about. Gone. And as predicted, they sold for about 30 cents on the dollar to NationStar. MCS, when Bennett Vincent sued MCS, and I said they would settle, they settled, and they settled for millions of dollars. ServiceLink, the former lender processing services. I mean, look, LPS went all the way back to Chicago Title, then Universal Title, then Fidelity, then LPS, then Fidelity, and now they're over at Black Knight. They're gone. Litigation recently filed in the state court down in San Diego County for employee misclassification. Yeah, they're going to go under. They will go under next year. They will go under, or they'll sell. One of the two, but they're gone. Ladies and gentlemen, the mortgage field services industry, those of you still willing to wait 60, 90 days. Look, I had a guy just went to MSI. Look, this guy, not illiterate. I know him quite well. Came to me, hey, MSI coming to me wanting to do work. I said, brother, they haven't paid people in 6 months. Yeah, but they said they're catching it. I said, brother, they haven't paid people in 6 months. You cannot sit and speak rationally to people like this. This is the epitome of insanity. You need to diversify. You need to get in with hedge funds. Look, you need help getting in with them. Foreclosurepedia can open those doors for you. We consult with nearly $2.5 billion worth of contract holders every day of the week. Publicly, we may be hated and excoriated. Privately, there's not too many deals going down without us involved. But let's not just talk about the simple and salient fact that houses are coming off the market, which means volumes are going to permanently drop no matter what crisis you come into. Let's talk about debt. Some publication out there, Vox, VOX, they got some pretty good articles. Some are liberal Every now and then they let a conservative article slip through there, but I like what they have to write. And I'm going to quote here. The average student loan debt in the U.S. is $32,731, according to the Federal Reserve Board. That may not sound like much, ladies and gentlemen. And the collective student loan debt carried by all Americans hovers around $1.5 trillion. These high debt levels prevent millennials from purchasing homes, even if they really wanted to. So let me interject here. So even if people want, even out of those 72.5 million who threw in the towel, millennial wants to go out and buy a house. I want you to listen to this. A 2017 study by the National Association of Realtors and the American Student Assistance Fund found that student debt delays millennial home ownership for 7 years. When we look for a crisis coming on, there's usually 2 points, at least myself, I look at, and I've never been wrong yet. One is I look at repos on subprime auto finance, and those, ladies and gentlemen, right now are through the fucking roof. And when it comes to student debt, that is the other point that I look at, and that's through the roof. Let's go further, though. The deficit in the U.S. is running at roughly $27 trillion. That alone is serious. However, it gets more serious when we begin to closely examine the cost to service the interest rate on the debt. So let me explain this in a way that only a trained media professional such as myself is capable of doing. The service on the interest of the debt is over $523 billion. And when you begin to see the Chinese, the Saudis, and the Russians decide to stop purchasing our debt, and for you naysayers out there who say that's not going to happen, let's talk about this for a moment. The Russians, Putin is pissed off as hell, primarily because he doesn't get to show his suave and debonair picture out there in the media anymore because old man Trump has taken over. They're pissed about that. The Chinese are pissed because they're in the trade war. And the Saudis, who just whacked a journalist, these people have no motivation to continue buying up debt. Look, the day is not far off, and the 2008 crisis is going to look like a joke. You want to get really scared? Corporate tax receipts. Remember, that's what actually finances the government. They're at a 75-year low. Look, there's some money out there. Hedge funds are ripping and rolling through the East Coast. I mean, they got flips going on, tenant occupied work. You know, surprisingly, though, even the hurricane work, normally readily available, it is starting to become adulterated. And you know by whom and where you really ought to begin to start to be concerned? These NAMPS regime members are attempting to become involved in that. Now, what we know is this: the industry has forever been adulterated by Eric Miller and Justis Smith, and not in a positive way. Billions of dollars have been defrauded from financial institutions, government-sponsored enterprises, hell, the U.S. government, and minority females in labor. I mean, this was just witnessed firsthand in the federal deposition given by Sherry Knott in the involuntary bankruptcy of National Field Network. Now, as we all know, many of you last year when I said we were going to bring an involuntary bankruptcy forward, everybody said that'll be the day. The day was here. And surprisingly, out of 219 people who could have gotten paid, only 73 filed a claim. And it didn't cost a penny to file the claim to get their money back. And out of those 73 claims, that was still $6.82 million defrauded by Jack Jaffa. Now, you can bring a horse to water. See, I'm an old boy from Oklahoma. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And for those of you out there still attempting to make preservation work, you need to think about diversification. And I'm going to tell you, diversification is the word of the day over at the International Association of Field Service Technicians. The IAFST, go there. Just go there, take a look. IAFST.org. They have training. They're involved in lobbying with the state legislatures under Dynamex to ensure that their membership is protected. They're moving contracts to and fro between labor and management. They're working with hedge fund entities right now to bring opportunities, partnerships forward to benefit labor. Management realizes that the engine that compels the financial solubility of their companies are dependent and hinged upon labor. But you reach out to them, give them a holler out there. And in closing, as a footnote, I'm going to talk to you about HUD, United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. Anybody who thought Dynamex was just going to slow the train down, look, HUD just issued a statement. HUD said point blank, and I'm going to quote here. The simple answer is that the field service managers, regardless of state, are required to abide by all state and local laws. Since the California court has issued the Dynamex decision, the FSM contractors would be required to follow it. I want you really to think about that, because if anybody thinks that Dynamex is going to be contained within California, you're smoking the drugs that I'm supposed to be on. Okay? Because Dynamex is based upon the ABC rule, and although more stringently applied in the state of California, Dynamex is prevalent in 22 states. And I'm going to tell you the lawyer to keep your eyes on. Shannon Liz Reardon. Miss Liz Reardon has a $100 million settlement in against Uber. I think, $27 million against Lyft. She's going after Grubhub. She's going after DoorDash. They do all the deliveries for Walmart. And look, when HUD makes a statement like that, HUD is point blank saying that we're not going to become involved in the fray. We're going to put the shoulder of that burden is going to lie upon the shoulders of the prime vendors. It's a serious deal. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Here at the bottom of the hour, we're going to go ahead and get back speaking with the two hedge funds. We're going to talk to them about what they have available, what they're interested in with respect to relationships between people. We'll be right back after this from a word from our sponsors.